What if your own family cut you out of their will after you spent years financing their lives? That's exactly what happened to Sarah, and her response will leave you speechless. Picture this: you're sitting at your childhood dinner table, surrounded by the people who raised you. The smell of home-cooked meals fills the air, bringing back memories of happier times. But tonight feels different. Tonight, your parents are about to drop a bombshell that changes everything. Sarah thought she was attending a regular family dinner. Her twin brothers, Mark and Jake, were already seated with smug expressions plastered across their faces. Her parents, Robert and Linda, exchanged knowing glances before her mother cleared her throat. "We need to discuss something important," Linda began, her voice unnaturally calm. "We've finished our will, and we want you to hear it directly from us." Sarah set down her fork, sensing the tension building in the room. Her father continued without his usual warmth, "We don't want any confusion later, so we're telling you now." Mark leaned back in his chair with a satisfied grin. "Simply put, everything comes to us. The house, the vacation property, all the assets, you get absolutely nothing." Can you imagine? Sarah froze in disbelief. Jake repeated it casually, as if announcing the weather. "Mom and Dad are leaving everything to us. You're getting zero." The room fell silent except for the distant sound of evening traffic. Sarah turned to her mother, desperately hoping she'd correct what she'd just heard. Instead, Linda gave a firm nod. "We believe this is the right decision," her mother explained, clutching her napkin. "You have a successful career and steady income. Mark and Jake are still figuring things out. They need more help." Sarah looked to her father for some explanation, some hint of hesitation. But Robert just stared at his water glass, avoiding eye contact completely. Here's where it gets really heartbreaking. For over 10 years, Sarah had been the family's financial backbone. She'd covered a huge chunk of their mortgage payments, paid countless medical bills, and bailed out Mark and Jake whenever they made poor financial decisions. "So after everything I've done, you've decided I deserve nothing?" Sarah's voice trembled despite her efforts to stay composed. Her mother sighed with disappointment. "You always make everything about money. But this wasn't about money at all. It was about fairness. It was about recognition for all the sacrifices Sarah had made. It was about being valued as more than just a checkbook." Mark laughed coldly. "You're being dramatic. Nobody forced you to help. You just enjoyed playing the hero." Then Jake delivered the cruelest blow. "Maybe you thought if you threw enough cash at us, Mom and Dad would finally love you as much as they love us." Those words hit Sarah like a physical slap. She waited for her parents to defend her, to shut down such cruelty. But they remained silent. In that silence, she understood everything. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stood up. "If that's your decision, then I have one of my own. Don't expect anything from me anymore." She walked out of that house, leaving behind their shocked faces and the scent of what used to feel like home. No one stopped her. No one called her name. Everything had changed in that moment. Driving home in silence, Sarah realized she'd always known the truth deep down. To them, she wasn't a daughter or sister. She was their personal ATM. Back in her apartment, Sarah stared at her banking app. Every month, she'd been sending $1,900 to cover their mortgage and expenses. Another $1,200 went to Mark and Jake whenever they claimed financial emergencies. Her finger hovered over the automatic transfer settings. For years, she'd accepted this burden as her responsibility. But they'd made their choice clear. They didn't need her. 1 second. 2 seconds. She pressed cancel. Recurring payments successfully stopped, the notification read. A wave of emotions crashed over her, anger, bitterness, but also something unexpected, relief. The next morning brought frantic phone calls. Her mother's voice was sharp with panic. "Did you cancel this month's payment?" "Yes, because I realized I don't have to do this anymore," Sarah replied calmly. "Family supports each other. You know we depend on that money." Sarah laughed, but not with amusement. "Family only matters to you when I'm paying for everything. If money isn't important, ask Mark and Jake to take care of you instead." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. But here's where Sarah's story takes an even more dramatic turn. 3 weeks later, she received a cryptic message: "Family meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Don't be late." Against her better judgment, Sarah decided to give them one final chance. Maybe they'd realized their mistake. Maybe they wanted to make things right. She walked into that living room to find her brothers with their arms crossed, looking defiant. Her parents stood there with expressions of disappointment and frustration. "You've put us in serious financial trouble," her father announced. "If you keep being stubborn, your mother is going to have a breakdown." Sarah couldn't believe it. After everything they'd put her through, they were still trying to manipulate her with guilt. "If this is why you called me here, don't waste your time." "I'm not coming back," she said firmly. Her mother's face went blank. "What did you just say?" Sarah looked around that house one final time. "I've done everything possible to be part of this family. But if my only value is the money I bring in, then I don't need that kind of love." She turned and walked toward the door. Nobody stopped her this time either. But the story doesn't end there. 2 days later, Sarah came home to find her apartment door sealed shut with industrial foam. Someone had deliberately blocked her from entering her own home. Security footage revealed the culprit, Jake, wearing a baseball cap and hoodie, smirking as he sprayed foam into every crack and crevice around her door. Sarah didn't hesitate. She called the police and pressed charges. When her family found out, they were outraged, not at Jake's actions, but at Sarah for involving law enforcement. "How could you do this to your own brother?" her father demanded over the phone. "Jake vandalized my property. If he doesn't want to face charges, he needs to pay $3,000 in damages," Sarah replied without hesitation. The next day, her account received the payment along with a bitter message: "I never want to see you again." Sarah felt nothing reading those words. No sadness, no regret. Just emptiness where family love used to be. Things escalated when her mother took to social media, painting Sarah as a heartless daughter who abandoned her struggling family. The post went viral with people who didn't know the full story condemning Sarah for her selfishness. But Sarah had had enough of lies and manipulation. She created her own post, laying out the truth: every dollar she'd sent over 10 years, every sacrifice she'd made, every time she'd been treated like an ATM instead of family. The response was immediate. Extended family members started asking questions. Some began calling out her mother for twisting the narrative. The truth finally came to light. Her mother called one last time, furious about the public exposure. "You're destroying this family," she screamed. "No, Mom. You destroyed this family." "Not me," Sarah replied before hanging up for the final time. And you know what? That was the moment Sarah's real life began. Without the constant financial drain and emotional manipulation, she threw herself into her career and earned a major promotion. She traveled to Italy, something she'd always dreamed of but could never afford because of family obligations. In Florence, she met Alex, someone who valued her for who she was, not what she could provide. For the first time in her life, she experienced genuine connection without ulterior motives. Months later, Sarah heard through relatives that her parents were struggling, working night shifts and cleaning jobs to make ends meet. Mark had lost his job due to poor performance. Jake was still chasing his influencer dreams with no success. Did Sarah feel guilty? Not for a second. They'd had every opportunity to treat her with respect and appreciation. Instead, they chose to use her until she finally said enough. This Christmas, instead of enduring forced conversations and obligation, Sarah hosted friends who truly cared about her. She stood on her balcony watching the city lights, feeling something she'd never experienced before, complete peace. Sarah's story isn't unique. Countless people sacrifice everything for family members who see them as resources rather than loved ones. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to value you properly. Family isn't just about blood. Real family appreciates you, supports you, and loves you without conditions. Sarah thought her parents cutting her from the will would break her. Instead, they gave her the greatest gift possible, freedom. What do you think? Was Sarah right to cut off her family financially, or should she have kept sacrificing for people who clearly didn't appreciate her? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moved you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that make you think. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most beautiful new beginnings.